On the vast highway stretching far, a transport truck, escorted by 3 imposing armored vehicles, raced along like a strong wind, stirring up clouds of dust in its wake. The roaring sound of the powerful engines abruptly shattered the long, standing stillness of the surroundings, startling birds hidden in the roadside grass, sending them into flight. It also disrupted the peaceful and calm atmosphere that had prevailed. Inside the transport vehicle, each member sat there appearing a bit restless. A tense atmosphere permeated the confined space, resembling an invisible, tightly drawn bowstring, ready to snap. Suddenly, a young team member looked flustered. He shouted loudly, reporting, "Captain, the radar has detected an unidentified object. But the view is clear, can't see a thing, you know." The captain, like a startled, mighty lion, suddenly became vigilant. He shouted hoarsely, "Everyone, be careful, prepare to fight." No sooner had he spoken than a massive boom sounded, as if the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. Without warning, the road ahead exploded into pieces. Debris is flying everywhere, dust and smoke billow spreading out. There is a massive thing, caught up in the chaos. It bursts forth fiercely from the earth's depths. As the dust settles a bit, people take a closer look. They collectively gasp. It turns out a colossal sandworm, the size of a mountain, emerges. Its coarse, tough scales glint coldly under the sun's rays, rows of sharp fangs like cold, piercing blades. A truly horrific sight. Without a moment's hesitation, the captain roared a command to the team. "Hit him with the heavy stuff. I'll provide cover, you two prioritize protecting the convoy." At this point, the people in the vehicle were thrown off balance by the sudden, violent impact. Some crashed against the carriage walls. Others fell on the floor. Everyone looked shocked. You look at me, I look at you, everyone's wondering, what the hell is going on? Just then, the announcement sound came from the broadcast system in an urgent tone, telling everyone to fasten their seat belts right away. Joan witnessed this terrifying scene unfold before her eyes in real time, her heart pounding. A jolt suddenly surged through my heart. I thought, why does this feel so familiar? Outside the vehicle, the situation was hardly any better. It was utter chaos. That colossal sandworm opened its bloody maw, like a black hole that could devour the heavens and the earth. Enveloped in a whirlwind of dust and a pungent, fishy stench, it viciously charged towards everyone, and everywhere it went. Deep furrows were carved across the ground. The captain was quick and agile, leaping from the vehicle in one swift motion. After a solid landing, he quickly raised his weapon and charged towards the sandworm like a released arrow, each step leaving shallow imprints on the ground beneath his feet, stirring up clouds of dust. In an instant, he closed in, and the captain roared. The sharp blade in his hand, swishing with the wind, whistled. He used every ounce of strength in his body and slashed down hard with the blade. A trail of sparks flew up. Immediately after, he twisted his body around. He raised his submachine gun. He then fiercely fired a flurry of shots at the sandworm's wound. Bullets poured out in a torrential storm. The sound of gunfire was deafening to the ears. The air was thick with smoke, constant booms echoing relentlessly. Before long, with the captain's fierce and relentless assault, the sandworm appeared to be gradually waning in its strength. Its massive body began to sway erratically. Its movements also became considerably sluggish. Signs of its defeat grew ever more apparent. The team members quickly gathered around. An expression of awe and admiration covered his face. Amazed, he exclaimed, as expected of our captain, to take down such a formidable monster single-handedly. The captain, upon hearing this, offered only a slight, faint smile. Calmly he stated, "What I am wearing is the mass-produced model of the Pioneer battlesuit. My combat power is on a different level than you support troops, with only your exoskeletons to wear." Hold on. As he spoke, his expression suddenly changed. "Something's wrong. How far have you driven? Be careful, the sandworm's might." The captain's words were cut short. Everyone looked up. They found that the sandworm's gigantic and sinister silhouette faintly appeared again ahead. Like a ghost, it silently drew near. Seeing this, the team members shouted in terror, "Oh no!" As a preparatory student of Jiangsu City's Battle Armor Academy, gazing at this chaotic scene unfolding before me, rampaging sandworms, courageous yet imperiled soldiers, overturned transport vehicles, and that refugee girl with a terrified look, my heart jolted, realizing I had once again arrived at this incredibly familiar scene. If memory serves, that refugee girl just now is about to die. Sure enough, a girl was flung out due to the violent shaking inside the vehicle, falling out of the transport vehicle's door. Her frail frame struggled helplessly in the air, uttering piercing screams. Joan truly couldn't bear to watch this happen again and again, powerless to intervene, her eyes instantly becoming bloodshot, her teeth grinding together loudly. He yelled frantically in his heart, "If only I had battle armor, come on. Contractivate. A brilliant, dazzling light, as if from the depths of the galaxy, flared, radiating brightly. It illuminated this chaotic and perilous battlefield. Joan's body was gradually encased in a powerful suit of armor, radiating with a metallic sheen. The patterns on the armor shimmered with a strange energy, as if ancient runes were awakening. A new fighter is announced to be entering the arena. Like a bolt of white lightning, Joan surges. Jumping off the transport vehicle, she moves agilely and lithely, landing firmly and safely on the ground. In an instant, he radiates with dazzling brilliance, transforming into the majestic and formidable white tiger armor. He raises his hand with a steady, precise motion, as if possessing a force of 1,000 tons. He gently caught the girl who was about to fall to the ground. At the very same moment, his other hand, like a strong and solid pillar that held up the sky, supported the tottering transport vehicle with great effort. Soon the scene returned to a state of calm and peace once more. The sandworm, which had once been so menacing and arrogant, brandishing its claws, was now severed into several segments, feebly sprawled on the desert sand nearby, utterly powerless. Inside the vehicle, people carefully emerged from the car. Their faces still showed the lingering expressions of terror and fear, their steps somewhat faltering. Their eyes, however, all focused on the majestic, awe-inspiring white tiger. Their eyes were filled with the relief of surviving a disaster and heartfelt gratitude for their savior. Everyone was brimming with sincere enthusiasm and excitement. They all ran towards the white tiger, one after another. Words of gratitude were shouted from his mouth. The team members gathered around, staring at the mysterious and powerful armor before them. They couldn't help but wonder, who is this armored warrior? Joan, hidden within the white tiger armor, listened to the queries of the people. For a moment, he found himself at a loss for words. Out of the blue, a small puppy caught John's eye. Even more astonishingly, the little dog seemed to be able to sense John's innermost thoughts. Opening its mouth, it barked a couple of times, and then a crisp young voice resounded in John's mind. "Nice, buddy, you are quite something." Startled, John's eyes widened instantly. His eyes were filled with disbelief and sheer terror. Thankfully, in the next instant, Joe bolted upright in his bed, panting heavily, gasping for air. He then realized that everything had just been a mere dream. Joe reached over to turn on his bedside lamp. The dim yellow light instantly illuminated the entire room, dissipating a bit of the fear brought on by the darkness. He glanced at his alarm clock. It was midnight. He slowly sat up, his hands clasping his head, his brow tightly furrowed. Gradually, he rose to a sitting position, cradling his head in his hands with a deeply lined brow. With a slow and deliberate motion, he sat upright, his head cradled between his hands, a deep crease etched between his brows, deliberating to oneself. Back in the day, in my dreams, countless times I have seen it, a suit of white armor, gleaming and ready for battle. Even though the look I see in each dream is slightly different. But I'm quite sure that those were all the same suit of armor. Just not sure what the name of this armor is. My head is killing me. I seriously can't remember a thing. It's like my brain is a total blank, like a fog rolled in. Nothing comes to mind. It's a complete and utter void now. As he spoke, Joe turned on the TV, frustration etched on his face. The news was on. It has now been 3 centuries since Dr. Belisarius Joe discovered the Joe metal virus. Many mysteries still surround this perplexing metal virus. The number of mutated creatures infected by the virus continues to rise worldwide. We interrupt this program for breaking news. There have been reports of mutated creature attacks on the outskirts of the city of Tianshu. Sources. From the Ming outpost, a transport vehicle headed for Tianshu City got ambushed by mutated creatures along the way. The battle armor squad guarding the convoy perished during this operation. We offer our utmost respect to the warriors who gave their lives in this incident. Avant-garde model battle armor, Joan pondered. That's the latest model of mass-produced battle armor. For a squad equipped with that kind of armor to be wiped out, the mutated creatures they encountered must have been at least level 3 or above. That's some seriously bad luck. Having said that, but if I had this kind of battle armor, this debt wouldn't be a problem. I really want a set of battle armor. Joe swiftly got dressed, braving the cold wind of the deep night. He headed towards the outer ring of the heavenly pivot city. On the way he walked, while sighing inwardly, finally done with everything. If it weren't for the Battle Armor Academy's upcoming class placement test, I wouldn't have to do part-time jobs in the middle of the night. 10,000. This family is really stingy with their pay. It's not even a tenth of what was promised. Working tirelessly all month, and this is all I get. It's nearly impossible to cover all the family's debts without my sister's help. I envy those who have powered armor. They can make a fortune with simple guild quests. I need a mech. Joan walked past a shop window. A set of a 3 mass-produced powered exoskeleton was on display. The armor shimmered with a silver gleam under the lights. The lines are smooth and clean, quite futuristic. Joan's steps can't help but halt. She wonders in her mind, civilian exoskeleton. Exoskeletons were initially key strategic resources during the early days of post-apocalyptic reconstruction. But since the emergence of the first-generation battle armor, they were quickly converted for civilian use. This turnover rate, talk about leaving the old behind for the new. Although their combat and protection abilities are not on par with the first-gen battle armor, they are still perfectly adequate for self-defense or heavy lifting. The A3 model, so the last generation of advanced exoskeletons has been released for civilian use, too. It'd be great to get a full exoskeleton suit if I get a chance. In a way, it is sort of the latest model of combat armor. The guild doesn't prohibit the use of exoskeletons either. This way, whether it's taking on odd jobs or going to the ruins outside the city to scavenge and hunt mutant creatures for their cores, I might get to try it out. Let's hope the price of this new battle armor is reasonable. But when he glanced at the price tag, he couldn't help but curse. Seriously, dude? Are you kidding me? 1 million, they could have just robbed me directly, but instead they give you an exoskeleton. It's even more expensive than some junky battle armor. It's even weaker than the trash warframe, it seems like. That warframe management is still strict. The market circulation of exoskeletons is controlled through high prices. To buy even the cheapest warframe, you need to have the purchase qualification. Otherwise, it's illegal possession of a warframe. For ordinary people, to obtain the purchase qualification, they either join the military or join the Warframe Academy. The placement test can't guarantee a 100% pass rate. I need to figure out a way to get a warframe of my own, Joan sighed helplessly. Joan's eyes were fixed on that Fado Assault-type warframe. His eyes were full of awe and amazement. He couldn't help but exclaim from the bottom of his heart, this latest generation of mass-produced battle armor from Chanshu technology is truly remarkable. It can be put on all by itself, without the help of any complicated equipment. The technology is off the charts, it's just so cool. Other than still needing a special place for storage. Concerning portability when compared to past models, it has indeed been greatly improved. However, the key point is that its price is truly affordable. It's a great deal. The civilian model costs just 300,000. In this vast and dazzling array of battle armor, after careful consideration and comparison, I looked around, and this one offers the best value for the money. No wonder after the City Guard's standard issue battle armor was upgraded. They've all been swapped out for these. These things are the real deal. When I breeze through the Battle Mech Academy placement test, I'll be able to purchase a battle mech just like that. It won't be a challenge anymore. Although, the Academy's class assignments are still up in the air. Surely they wouldn't stick me in the logistics class. When that happens, I can take on school quests to earn some extra cash. It's way more lucrative than slaving away at some part-time gig out there. Just thinking about it gets you pumped. As Joan was excitedly envisioning a bright future, the door was suddenly pushed open. Jonah rushed in like a whirlwind, yelling at the top of her lungs. Still sound asleep in the middle of the day. Wake the hell up. Startled, Joan shot up in bed, with mortification plastered on her face, and sheepishly scratched her head, saying, Jonna, could you at least knock next time? I vividly recall that. The consequences were dire when I barged into your room unannounced. It was an awful outcome, so I was just tossed aside by you. Isn't that a bit of a double standard? Sister Jonah's brows furrowed, her face expressing visible impatience. Cut it out, how dare you use my name so casually? I think you're just itching for a beating. Seriously though, I won't be going to the academy with you the day after tomorrow. Joan helplessly spread his hands out and shrugged his shoulders, saying, not just a double standard, but also a master of changing the subject. You won't let others say it. No wonder your relationship is always so rocky and bumpy. While saying that, he lifted his eyebrows to Jonah. A mischievous grin hung on his lips. Jonah glared at Joan fiercely and said sharply, stop messing around, take this box. Joan was full of curiosity and his eyes were wide open. He took the box with both hands, scrutinizing it carefully, while unable to resist asking, what's this? What's inside this thing so mysterious and secretive? Jonah seriously instructed him. Next week, remember to dispose of the crystals in this box. Also, settle the outstanding payments for this month. The rest of the money is yours to manage. Use it freely. Hearing this, Joan's brows furrowed into a deep frown. He pressed further, why don't you go? Besides, this stuff isn't exactly in high demand right now. Can't we wait a bit longer since we can't fetch a decent price? Jonah shot him a sidelong glance, retorting, I thought you were sharp and quick-witted. Surely, you wouldn't let your sister come back, only to find our house seized by the bank to settle debts, would you? You're way better than me at this whole deal-making thing. This property is all we've got left. It's filled with tons of family memories. We absolutely can't let it get taken away. Okay, no time for idle chit-chat. I'm off. I have a mission to get to. Be sure to do your best on the placement test. This is just the initial stride on your path to triumph. Don't screw it up. With that, Jonna turned and rushed out the door in a flurry. After her sister left, Joan sat on the edge of her bed. She clutched the enigmatic box, her gaze fixed upon it. I couldn't help but ponder deeply. This high-level mutated creature crystal. My sister was actually willing to part with it. What secrets could possibly be hidden within? And how much money will this fetch to ease our family's urgent needs? Meanwhile, in the Chanshu City's Battle Armor Academy, a student was praying devoutly, saying, "Oh heavens, I hope that the results of my exam this time are a bit better. My academic credits were pitifully low last time." She isn't even a tenth as good as Jonah was back then. When a classmate nearby overheard this, he couldn't help but scoff. You actually think you can compare to senior Jonah? Don't you think you're overestimating yourself a bit? She was the most outstanding student since the school's founding. Her talent was simply 1 in 10,000. Absolutely extraordinary. How could you possibly compare yourself to her? The mocked classmate couldn't help his curiosity. Scratching his head, he asked, "But why would she turn down the offer from the military intelligence department? Such outstanding grades, giving up a promising and bright future in the capital. It makes no sense at all." "What is she?" A classmate beside him leaned in, whispering to him mysteriously. She likely stayed in Chanshu City to mentor her younger brother. Senior student Jonah was about to graduate. Joan had just ended a break from his studies and returned to the academy. On the genius rankings, Joan was right behind her. She must have had high hopes for him. Wanted to lend him a hand, you see. This classmate's interest was suddenly piqued upon hearing this. With a twinkle in his eyes, he said, "Genius rankings. You actually buy that sort of thing? Isn't it all just made up by the students themselves, like messing around? How could it have any real use at all? But speaking of geniuses, word on the street is a genius student suddenly appeared in our year. Have you heard about this? Rumor has it that this guy is incredibly talented. Currently, he's ranked 3rd in our grade. It's just a shame that he comes from a commoner's background. I wonder if I'll ever get to use a real contract armor in the future." The classmate across from her didn't like hearing this at all. Pouting, she said, "I don't like it when you talk like that. Talent comes from heaven. What's it got to do with bloodline?" The other person smiled dismissively. "Of course it's related. Those armor families come from prestigious and noble backgrounds. Not only does it mean they have all sorts of abundant resources, but also the chances of using high-level contract armor are much greater. Let's count the best of the best in our school, Yulil and Yusheng. All come from renowned families with a legacy of war armor. The surname Kyle is quite rare. I bet they are possibly relatives of the Kyle family, once counted among the central 3 great houses." Just as the two were locked in their heated debate, all of a sudden, the classroom door was gently pushed open. A figure slowly walked in. Both of them instinctively turned their heads around to take a look. It turned out to be Yu Sheng, who was unexpectedly showing up. Seeing this, the two instantly stopped arguing. Lowering their voices, they started to whisper to one another. Speaking of which, Kuaoan took a year off from school. Do you think it's going to have an impact on his placement test? I doubt that very much. Yu Sheng walked to his seat, seemingly oblivious to everyone else's presence. He settled into his seat slowly. He took off his headphones, a look of calm on his face. Without any rush, he began to speak. The Kiao family is done for. Nobody knows what kind of trouble they got themselves into. The Kuao family were kicked out of the capital city, Yu Heng. Barely anyone is alive, and besides, how could Kuaoan, a man reeking of poverty from head to toe, possibly be from a prominent family background? Word is Joan's deep in debt. She's barely scraping by, living on the edge. The brutish second son of the Li family has his eyes on her. Her future is looking incredibly bleak, just hopeless. And as for contract battle armor, that's just a pipe dream for him. Yu Sheng folded his arms, leaning back comfortably. His face was the picture of someone reveling in another's misfortune, just waiting for a good show. A clear and melodious voice, tinged with a hint of playful banter, resonated from the classroom doorway. I was wondering why there was such a strong smell of soreness in this room. Turns out the lid of the vinegar jar's off. It's so strong. Quick, put the lid back on. Don't let it stink up the whole class. Yao Lelin said this while waving her little hand about. Upon hearing these words, Yu Sheng's expression immediately soared. He furrowed his brow and said, a frown creasing his face. Why do you always stick up for that punk Joan? I thought we were supposed to be close, having grown up side by side. I'm not going to argue with a woman about something so trivial. He then, in a huff, plugged his headphones back in, the music blasting, no longer paying attention to the group, immersed in his music, oblivious to the world around him. A sly grin spread across Yalin's face, her smile growing wider by the second. Leaning against the wall, grinning, he quipped, battle armor. If Joan is willing to ask for it, this young lady can provide whatever you want. Joan, that's the guy I have my eye on. On the butt. An exciting enlistment ad from the Defense Force was playing on repeat. Passengers were all commenting, this guy is so cool, clad in battle armor, looking so majestic. I wish I could become an admired and respected soldier like them. Joan was bored, staring at the street scene outside, passing by. A loud voice of lively discussion reached his ears. He turned around. Some guy was passionately and excitedly promoting the benefits of joining the Battle Armor Academy to the people around him. As Joan listened, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Couldn't help but think to myself, this guy seems like he's trying to recruit for some shady security company. Although if newcomers can make it through the initial period, they really can get paid 10 times more or even higher. But that initial period, it's like the gates of hell. One wrong step and you're done for. Those who don't make it, they can't come back. Naturally, they won't say anything bad either. However, he mentioned going outside the city to strike it rich. That's a good reminder. If I could just stumble upon some valuable stuff, I wouldn't need to constantly grind away at part-time jobs anymore. And if I'm even luckier, and find some sort of forgotten war mecha suit, that would be a real stroke of luck. Simply It seems that once the class placement test results are in, I really should start to make some serious plans. This standard of testing is somewhat puzzling. The test wrapped up today. Strangely, a large vial of my blood sample was taken away. Joan frowned, a bit perplexed. With arms crossed, she was lost in thought. She felt a mix of anticipation and slight apprehension about what was to come. After a week, Joan came back to the Battle Armor Academy. Students who enrolled at the Battle Armor Academy must undertake 2 years of preparatory study. Placement tests take place as the preliminary phase draws to a close. The results, along with regular grades, dictate the student's specialization. Following past precedent, once testing concludes, students find their niches in areas such as communications, strategy, leadership, or combat. Each major is like a different track, leading to diverse futures. At this moment, Yaoilin is positioned just outside the door, anxiously awaiting Clown's results with visible concern. Suddenly, the door swings open. Joan emerged, appearing a bit wary but with a serene look on his face. The moment Yaoilin saw him, her eyes sparkled like the stars. A radiant smile blossomed across her face. She eagerly asked, "How did it go?" "I asked the teacher about your grades earlier. You got first place in every subject. Oh, if only you could become the Yao family's son-in-law. Nah, but if it were Joan, I'd marry her in a heartbeat, you know?" Yaoilin's words were getting increasingly wild, going off the rails. She was clearly in a state of infatuated delusion at this point. Joan stood right behind her, and seeing this, thought to herself, this girl, could she have already chosen our children's names? She couldn't help but shake her head, a wry smile and a look of helplessness spreading across her face. This girl, could she have already chosen our children's names? He replied, I've actually been assigned to the logistics squad. Yaoilin was like a statue carved out of wood or clay, utterly frozen in place. Never in her wildest dreams did she imagine such an outcome. After a brief moment, Yaoilin snapped out of her daze, like a powder keg about to blow. Her fury propelled her forward in a flash. She darted into the teacher's office like an unleashed arrow. As if she were going to have it out with the teacher, to demand justice. This is a setup. As soon as she entered, Yaoilin shouted at the top of her lungs. Luckily, Clown reacted swiftly and lunged forward, blocking her at the door, fearing she might cause serious trouble. No need for that, Yaoilin. I've got this. Calm down. Clown firmly grasps her arms with both hands, attempting to soothe her restless emotions. Teachers sit at their desks, totally bewildered by this sudden commotion, shaking their heads helplessly. They can only remark, kids these days are so full of energy. One teacher furrows his brow, his face full of confusion, and softly inquired, weren't the war armor compatibility tests and contract factor level evaluations conducted only when students were about to graduate in previous years? What's with the long lead time? Do you have any updates? The other instructor, looking equally lost, shook his head with a sigh, saying, I have no clue. Absolutely nothing from Sky Hub Tech. Although we are one of the investors in their college, they can't be this careless, right? It's going to be tough managing the students' expectations after this. At least in the past, they wouldn't link talent with lineage, a theory on bloodlines. Also wonder when the usage requirements for the mass-produced battle armor will be relaxed so that ordinary people can use them. The other instructor said, I reckon the test was moved up this early because the Stronghold's reconstruction is behind schedule, Ever since the Stronghold expansion project ran into trouble in the ruins and was scaled back, they've been enlisting troops like crazy. Though the recruitment standards haven't been lowered. I've got another question. Have you had him try on the battle armor yet? One of the teachers suddenly remembered something and looked at his colleague asking. The other guy shook his head, saying nope. This teacher continued. It's just that before, when graduates in other cities were tested for compatibility, they showed no response. But there are also examples of people who got a warframe later and were able to use it. Could Joan's situation be? But the teacher across from him disagreed, shaking his head. Pouring cold water, he said it's tough. It's a 1 in a million thing, the odds are just too slim. Even if it is him, so what? I already bent the rules, took the test sample, and had it retested elsewhere. Still a no-go, what can I do? Everyone's watching like hawks now. If we made a big fuss to mobilize a warframe. Neither of us could stay any longer. It's better that he's gone to the logistics squad now. Safer than going to the front lines. Since you care so much, then take good care of him. Meanwhile, at Tianshu Technologies' Battle Armor Research and Development Department, Lin Wei, with confident and elegant steps, arrived at the entrance of the parallel class. Her lips curled into a smile as she greeted the teacher. There is a site that needs logistical support. I'm here to borrow some students. The teacher, seeing it was her, smiled back. She inquired politely, so are you going with the same as before? You want just 5 students? Lin Wei gently shook her head and responded, no, the venue is a bit larger this time. I will need a whole class. With a troubled look on his face, Teacher Yu rubbed his hands together and cautiously said to Lin Wei, Ms. Lin, although your company is a big spender and has donated a great deal of money to our institution, you see, you also hold a very high position in your company. It is a true senior leader. But now an entire class of students are going to be taken away. This matter, it's kind of inappropriate. No matter what, it's really not following the norm. What's more, the only available class at the moment are new students who have only just begun their studies for a few days. They are suited for your needs, but they just got assigned to classes a short while ago. Their courses haven't even really gotten started. To take them out right now is really exceptionally unsuitable. Lin Wei remained collected and calm, a faint smile gracing her lips. Without any haste, she addressed him, my dear Deputy Director Yu. I truly empathize with the challenges you're encountering at work. Just look, from the moment we started working together, hasn't it been smooth sailing all the way, and during our collaboration? You've certainly gained a lot of advantages, right? What's going on? Do you now feel it's insufficient? And you're having some doubts? Director Yu felt a sudden chill run down his spine. My face was full of tension and fear. Carefully I responded, no, I'm just feeling a bit uneasy inside. A little bit worried, you see. Some students in the logistics section, they all come from influential families. If they stomp their feet, the ground shakes. Even our school administration treats them with extra care daily. And you're a high-ranking executive, naturally fearless. But what if something goes wrong? I'm not sure I can handle it. Lin Wei walked straight ahead and said coldly, it's just cleaning up the place. It's not as complicated as you think. Just relax those young masters and misses. We'll be well taken care of, nothing will go wrong. We'll be well taken care of, nothing will go wrong. I'm sure you won't let me down. Linda paused and turned her head, her gaze fixed firmly upon Professor Yu. The intensity in her eyes made it hard for Professor Yu to breathe. He could only nod repeatedly. In the logistics classroom, Professor Wong stood at the podium, proclaiming loudly, it is completely different from the preparatory phase. After the specialization, your immediate learning objective has now changed. The top priority is to earn credits. The knowledge and skills learned during the preparatory phase, it's just about making sure everyone can live safely within the walls, in this now desolate and ruined world. Here in our logistics team, we mainly rely on handling tasks related to mutant creatures. To earn credits, therefore, it is essential to remember all kinds of information about these creatures. The core locations in particular, never be careless about them. The Academy will periodically provide various practical training opportunities, and these chances are perfect for accumulating credits. Try not to miss this opportunity. Missing out means losing money. Our logistics team has a unique advantage. That is, we can use a special kind of free credit. according to a certain ratio. It can be converted into credits needed for graduation. It's really simple to obtain. All you gotta do is hand in the cores of mutated creatures. It's like when you kill monsters in a game, they drop loot you can trade for rewards. Easy. Everything that you need in this college, whether it's study materials, daily necessities, or the combat armor you desire, can be obtained by exchanging credits. Credits are the universal currency in our college. Therefore, everyone has to work hard to earn credits. However, I need to give everyone a warning. During practical training sessions, unexpected situations might pop up, resulting in casualties. It's true that this is within the scope of what the rules permit. But if anyone has any malicious intent, purposely causing harm to others, hoping to gain academic credits, the Academy will not stand for it. We will immediately hand this person over to the Department of Justice for adjudication. It will be up to the department to decide their future. Therefore, everyone must properly wear the protective gear issued by the Academy. This is a crucial piece of equipment that will save your life. When it counts, it will be able to save you. Do not take it lightly. Protective gear, it doesn't come cheap. This is a special product meticulously crafted by the Academy. With unique materials and exquisite craftsmanship, its protection is top-notch. It's enough to save your life in a pinch. Of course, only the first one is free. After the apocalypse, every person is an incredibly precious resource. Don't be foolish and risk your life. The instructor's lecture on stage went on and on. Yaoi, however, in the audience, seemed completely detached from the situation. Her eyes fixated on Klon, who was standing nearby. A silly grin spread across her face as she gently uttered, "Anne, look, we are in the same class now, so we can see each other every single day." Yaoi felt quite uncomfortable under her intense gaze. He awkwardly scratched his head, feeling a bit flustered. Summoning his courage, he asked, "Why did you choose the logistics class? With your qualifications, you shouldn't really be here." Yaoi winks playfully, a smile spreading across her face. She chuckles lightly. "I just asked my family to pull a few tiny strings, and got that person transferred to the logistics team." Kwon sighs in resignation when he hears this. With your grades, it's obvious that you should have chosen the command track. That's where you'd really shine. I just want to spend my time with you. I always kept missing you before. I finally have the chance to catch up this time. I could not care less about academic credits. Anyway, I have to keep an eye on you now. I cannot let you, like before, suddenly disappear again. At this very moment, Professor Yu led Lin Wei into the classroom, announcing loudly, "Hey Mr. Wong, can I bother you for a sec? Tell the students to get ready for some off-site training, like pronto. There's a mission." When Kyeon heard this, her eyes instantly lit up. She silently thought to herself, field training, huh? This is a pretty good opportunity. See if I can score some core stuff. If I get lucky and bring back a big haul, I might make a killing. Seems like there are ways to make money in logistics. It's a bit more than I expected. This way, I don't have to focus solely on venturing outside the city for opportunities, taking risks. It's definitely a good thing. But the other students seemed to have exploded. Faces filled with shock, they shouted in protest. The classroom instantly became a chaotic mess. Seeing this, Professor Yu's face darkened, and his brow furrowed. "Silence. Everyone quiet down right now. Your logistics unit's discipline is terrible. What is this all about? What's with all this ruckus?" Lily slowly walked to the podium and said softly, "Everyone calm down for a sec. Let me explain in detail the content of this training session. Perhaps after you listen, your minds will be changed. The mission this time is to collect cores from mutated creatures outside the city. Under normal circumstances, these cores can only be exchanged for academic credits. This time is different, though, as it directly counts towards your mission credits. These credits are real and without any reductions. The more you work, the more you get, and there's no limit. This time your credits are multiplied based on the quality of what you gather. If you're really lucky and you find a high-quality core, you could get up to 10 times the credit reward. This is an unprecedented opportunity, a really amazing deal, so everyone, make sure you seize this chance." As soon as these words were spoken, the classroom atmosphere immediately became as charged as a lit powder keg, erupting into a lively buzz. Every student was astonished, eyes wide open, in disbelief of what they had just heard. 10 times they muttered incessantly. Good heavens, it was like a pie falling from the sky. Never had there been such a fantastic opportunity. Watching her students' excitement, Lin Wei slightly and carried on saying, "There's even more. This time, the 2 students who turn in the most cores the fastest will get to use the newest mass-produced exoskeleton for half a month. And there are no restrictions on its use. Use it however you want, just as long as after half a month, you return a complete exoskeleton to me with no missing parts. In other words, no matter what you do with the exoskeleton after you receive it, even if you use it to show off or use it to play around, as long as you return it after half a month, it will be fine as long as it is intact. Teacher Yu, who was listening nearby, was so anxious that he was stumping his feet. She hurriedly whispered to Lin Wei, "Miss Lin, this doesn't seem right. Never mind how outrageous the bonus credit reward is. Just using an exoskeleton privately as a reward is a serious violation of the Academy's rules. If the higher-ups find out, we'll all be in deep trouble." Lin Wei, however, smiled confidently, not caring at all. She patted Teacher Yu on the shoulder. "Relax," she said. "When did I ever say the Academy was providing the exoskeletons? I've got this covered, so you don't have to fret over it." Faced with no other option, Professor Yu turned to address the class, saying, "You all heard what Ms. Lin said. This is a rare chance. Those who are interested in the practical training, please go to the logistics office and sign up with the staff there right away. Don't miss out on this golden opportunity, folks. Make haste." Standing there, Clowen pondered to herself, half a month's access to an exoskeleton. Time's a bit tight, it really is. But if we play our cards right and make good use of this time, maybe we can ease the pressure from these debts that are breathing down our necks. But this trip out of the city, I wonder which district it'll be. Could it be a bit dangerous? If I don't want to rely on my sister's help, I've got to seize every chance to make some money. I'm just worried that Yao Lin will tag along and complicate things. A few days later, everyone arrived at the training site. The teacher's instructions were quite clear. Stay within the designated area, or the Academy won't be held accountable for any incidents that may happen. Make absolutely certain you carry the provided locators and ensure they are powered on and functioning. If danger presents itself, immediately press the button on your locator to activate the device. Upon activation, swiftly retreat towards the camp's location. Personnel will be dispatched to meet and assist you on your way. Joan turned her head to look at her companion, Yolanda. Yolanda seemed to be overflowing with excitement. Joan was curious and asked her a question. "You don't need the money. And you already have enough academic credits, so why the eagerness and enthusiasm?" Upon hearing this, a smile crept onto Yalin's face. Her grin was sweet and innocent. She playfully queried, "Are you worried about me? I've been under strict rules from my family my whole life. They wouldn't let me leave the city. This is the first time I've managed to slip away, so I need to see what the world's like out there. I've got my armor and locator with me all set. Don't you worry about a thing. If danger comes, I can outrun you for sure. Go ahead and take care of your own business." Just then, someone sidled up to Lin Wei whispering, "I really don't get why you're bringing these students on board. Wouldn't it be quicker and easier to hire experienced workers? Plus, you're even offering 2 sets of exoskeletons as a personal bonus. That's quite a hefty price tag." A subtle smile played on Lin Wei's lips. She displayed a knowing smile, a hint of mystery. She whispered, "Experienced workers, they tend to talk too much. They are outsiders. This assessment values confidentiality above all else. As for the young masters and ladies of the logistics department, they have no shortage of money, and they don't care about credits. They won't be participating in this training. If something happens to the average student, the Academy has a clear, itemized damage allowance for training. The Combat Armor Academy isn't about using company money to breed delicate flowers in a greenhouse. As for the pay, skilled workers not only want money, they're also a lot of trouble. But students collecting cores and turning them in is beneficial to us. It can even help cover some of the costs of the testing equipment. In addition, academic credits are only a pile of laughable numbers. It's not something we need to worry about. Used exoskeletons 99 and new from personal use should be fine. And what about the test of the battle armor? Hasn't it returned yet?" The person glanced at their phone and said, "The test armor signaled mission completion 30 minutes ago. It should have arrived by now." Meanwhile, deep within the ruins outside of Tianshu City, a gloomy and deathly stillness, like a thick layer of haze, spreads. Wanlin, a mutant creature of enormous size, as large as a mountain, appeared just like a prehistoric beast. It emanated a chilling aura of brutality. It was running rampant, unrestrained amidst the ruins, moving with ferocity. At this moment, the battle armor test personnel reported into the intercom. "This is the 21st test report. The new rifle's focused energy mode has significant energy dispersion issues. After directly hitting a highly dangerous target of level 4 or above, it surprisingly cannot deliver a fatal blow or cause lethal damage." The person reporting was full of frustration and a sense of helplessness. Beads of sweat as big as beans were falling from the forehead. They slid down the cheeks. But then a sudden change came over his face. It was because he found out that he could not get in touch with the camp at all. This person's heart suddenly contracted. A look of panic flashed in the eyes. Relying on the instincts developed over years of training, he moved as fast as lightning. Find a shelter nearby and take cover behind it. Thinking to myself, thankfully, even with energy dissipation, this concentrated mode can still cause high damage. Otherwise, I would be done for today. However, the energy consumption is way too high. It's like a bottomless pit. It's been so long. How come the camp hasn't detected anything unusual? This is so frustrating. The tester glanced down at the flashing energy indicator on the gun. The faint light that remained indicated that the residual energy was sufficient for only a single shot. A way to retrieve the lost spear must be found. Just then, a shadowy figure, like a phantom, swiftly descended from above. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a mutated cat. Its fur stood on end, each strand like a steel needle, fixated on the armored warrior before it. The mutated cat, like a demon enraged, suddenly arched its back. Its hind claws viciously clawed at the ground. A cloud of dust billowed up, and it roared. It charged at the man like a shot. The racket over here was like an invisible call, drawing the colossal mutant in the distance to slowly turn its head. Who knows how much time passed? A fierce gale howled through. It felt like it would uproot this ruin. Dust and smoke filled the air like a heavy curtain. It surged wildly, spreading everywhere. When the wind finally subsided, the smoke and dust seemed to be slowly pushed away by a giant, invisible hand. It was as if someone had pressed the mute button on the scene. Everything returned to an eerie silence. Joan moved quickly through the ruins, her eyes scanning intently. She didn't want to miss a single spot. Suddenly a sparkle caught his eye. He stopped abruptly in his tracks. His face lit up with a smile of surprise and joy. "Thank you, Mother Nature," he exclaimed gratefully. "What a lucky find right here. It appears to be a large construction-type exoskeleton. Too bad it's out of juice. If it were operational, I reckon I could sell it for a small fortune." But before I could get carried away with these thoughts, the ground below started to feel like it was being grabbed by some giant, invisible hand that was shaking it violently. All of a sudden, it started shaking really hard. Almost losing my footing, I stumbled. My eyes widened, and my face was a picture of fear and confusion. I was frozen, not knowing what to do. Amidst the pandemonium, he started to panic. A horrifically mutated creature emerged, as if crawling straight out from the depths of hell's abyss. It lunged at him with a deafening roar. Joan snapped back to reality. His survival instinct ignited, burning intensely in his very core. He gritted his teeth and sprinted forward with all his might. After regaining some composure, he examined the grotesque creature. He gasped, thinking to himself, feeling shocked. It appears to be a mutated rat zombie. Its ferocity was far beyond anything I could have imagined. Surviving the apocalyptic catastrophe, it seems to possess an even greater adaptability than the records indicated from the old era. Truly, it's the survival of the fittest. Only the strong survive. Joe mused inwardly as he sprinted. Noticing that he couldn't shake off this relentless pest behind, Joe's eyes darted around. He spotted a secluded hideout. Like a drowning man grasping at a life-saving straw, he quickly ducked inside to hide. Curled up, residing in this place, so cramped, so very dim, he was out of breath, taking deep gulps of air, trying to still the wildly beating heart. Taking a peek, monitoring the situation outside. Through the crack, secretly pondered in my heart. The mission was simply to retrieve the cores from the bodies. This task, plain and straightforward, required us only to collect the cores within the remains. The task was a straightforward one, involving merely the extraction of certain cores from within the bodies. All we had to do was just gather up the cores embedded in the corpses. The objective was uncomplicated, simply to extract the essential cores from the deceased. Things are getting weird with random earthquakes and living creatures mutating out of the blue. We're not just dealing with bizarre tremors. Living things are undergoing strange transformations as well. Aside from the inexplicable seismic events, mutated organisms are now making an appearance. The situation is dire. Not only are we experiencing unexplained earthquakes, but also the emergence of living organisms. It is not just the earthquakes of unknown origin anymore. Now there are mutated living beings. Let's head back to camp first to see what's up, and we'll take it from there. It would be best to assess the situation before making our next move, just to be safe. We'll figure things out after getting the lay of the land back at base. Things are a bit uncertain at the moment, so we should regroup before proceeding. Joan was preparing to quietly slip away when suddenly, a heavily armored warrior bursts forth, yelling at the top of his lungs, "Get out of the way! What the hell is this thing? Where did it come from? There's absolutely nothing in the database that matches this kind of mutant creature." The mutated creature, seemingly drawn in by the commotion, shifts targets in an instant. It roars as it charges toward the new objective. A shallow trench is carved into the earth wherever it goes, kicking up clouds of dust. The command center was shrouded in a thick cloud of dread and panic. Lights flickered, and alarms blared all around. A man in a white lab coat looked frantic. He yelled at the top of his lungs. High energy bio response from a mutated Gavadan virus detected. Response level full. We don't have any suits of a high enough level to deal with it. Hearing this, Lin Wei furrowed her brow. Her eyes filled with anxiety and urgency, she asked loudly, "What about the suit under testing? Have they not been contacted yet?" Without even looking up, the person on the other end swiftly replied, "We've lost contact, the armor's only showing vitals." But the signal from the mutated creature appeared right on the armor's planned return route from the test. They've likely encountered each other, and it doesn't look good. This test with the weak factor energy level matched to the armor was irregular to begin with. Even this test armor, though all the test data has been saved. Given the situation, you need to make a decision quickly. If this drags on, a big mess will happen. Lin Wei gritted her teeth, a decisive glint flashing in her eyes. She commanded loudly, "Dispatch personnel to assist all students in returning to the camp for evacuation." Unexpectedly, the situation outside the city had already descended into chaos. The students, like startled birds, scattered and fled in all directions. Cries, the booming sounds of weapons, and the roars of mutated creatures intertwined together. Right then, a massive boulder plummeted from the sky, like a mountain pressing down. It rapidly swung down towards where Yao Lelin was standing. She was just about at death's door in an instant.